Hey everybody, I'm Green Havoc, and this is Contenders South America. I've got a couple of great analysts with me here today, and I'm so glad they are because we have a really interesting game kicking off, well, all of the games for today. And that is two titans of the South American scene. Well, at least they were just last season. This season is a lot of questions, and again, I'm so glad that I have some smart analysts here to break it down, so I'm not here adrift all alone. I've got Paulsable and Frito on the desk, and they're going to answer some of these questions when it comes to Black Dragons versus Isurus Gaming. Again, two titans just last season. So, Paulsable, first off, how are you doing? Second off, what is going on with Black Dragons? What are some of these questions they're having?
Well, the first one I can definitely answer. I'm doing great, and I'm ready for some hype Overwatch. The second one, bit of a toss-up, right? You know, you mentioned it. Black Dragons, a very historic organization here, but they've just dropped two of their players, and there has yet to be a public announcement as to who will be filling in. As far as we know, we only know for certain 4 of the players on the roster because their main tank of Kyo and their main support Vetzer, who was on the Brazil World Cup team, are now free agents, right? So we don't really know what to expect from this team today, which has kind of been their story of them this season overall. They've been a team that's shown us a lot of strange compositions, a lot of pocket picks coming out. I referred to them last week as the Riddler team, if you will. They like to throw something weird at you, make you figure it out before the timer runs out, and, well, so far everybody's figured them out thus far. They haven't been able to pick up a map off their weird strategies, but if they want to stay in the running for that playoff spot, they cannot drop another map this season. The next 2 games, they have to 4-0, and they also have to pray that some teams above them drop some maps that they maybe shouldn't. So this is definitely going to be an uphill battle for Black Dragons, but who knows? Maybe their weirdness will pay off.
And they've got some old glory to try and rebuild, but we do have Isurus, who is in control of their own destiny. Right now, they're sitting in 3rd spot with a 2-1 record, and they can still clench above 4th, which is important. But I'm going to let Frito explain kind of what needs to happen for Isurus Gaming today and some of the questions that they've been having.
Well, you were speaking about old glory. It doesn't get any better than Isurus, who went all the way to 2nd place last season, losing only to who was Brazil Gaming House at the time, now Base Tryhards, which ultimately, in this top 4 team setup, what everyone is dodging is falling into 4th place, because that team in Group B is going to get seeded right into playing Base Tryhards in the playoffs, and I don't think Isurus wants to see a rematch of that anytime soon, especially as, despite having many veteran players on this roster, they did, of course, have a bit of a Theseus's ship problem where they've traded out so many components. Their DPS from last season are gone. Now we have the new players, both Jane and Matias, who are picking up the reins, but we're in a very different meta than we were last season. Very tank heavy, of course, teamwork reliant, not so much into the popping off with DPS. But this is a team that does like to try to run DPS. They'll put Jane on, protect the McCree strategies. They've run a few different looks in the past few weeks, and to their credit, they have yet to drop a series since they've added Matias to the lineup. However, I think looking back to last week, I don't know if we're so convinced of their performance, because LFO last week had a key player in their Lucio get disconnected from the server, making that matchup a lot easier on them. So although Isurus does look to be on the upswing and definitely wants to make a march towards playoffs, we're a bit concerned in their overall strength as a team. I think their tank core is strong, but they haven't really reached that upper level of teamwork and coordination that some of the other top level teams in the region have been showing us thus far. But they're up against Black Dragons this week. So if you wanted a confidence booster, this should be it. So in my mind, especially with 2 players dropping out of the Black Dragons roster in this matchup, I would say that we should look to see Isurus look quite dominant in this, actually. Like, I want it to look like a professional level team playing on ladder against mixed queue, essentially. That's how good it should look if Isurus wants to keep on that upward swing, gaining momentum into playoffs.
All right. And now I definitely like that. So we've got 2 teams. Black Dragons, they need 4 O's for basically the rest of the season if they want even a shot into that Final Four. And we have Isurus Gaming, who right now, like I said, they control their own destiny. But it is still very possible that every team, or the teams competing at least for the 3rd and 4th spot, end at 3 and 2. So map records are going to be incredibly important here, which means they can't really afford to even drop a map to Black Dragons. So, Frito, if they needed to lock this game down, what do they need to do to make sure they don't drop a map?
Remember your GOAT's fundamentals. It worked for Fury last week. It made them look like a very strong, competent team. That's what I want to see out of Isurus. Don't overthink it. Black Dragons, they might be the Riddler or whatever villain, but I think you could be the Batman in this situation.
All right, perfect. That's what I like to hear. But these teams are getting ready to play. Our casters are getting warmed up. We've just got to make sure everyone's on the same page. We're going to go to a quick break. And when we come back, our show stealers themselves, Panda and Labasco, will, well, steal the show. We'll be right back.
Wondering why
I'm like actually a second behind. Yep.
Welcome here on Broadcast.gg. It is week 4 of Contenders South America. It's Labasco and Panda with you as we're going to jump right into the action between Isurus Gaming and Black Dragons. Nitro with the early elimination at the start, Panda. As we see here, they are starting to have control. Isurus is going to have to regroup. We also weren't sure about Black Dragons as far as their roster. Well, we see that one of those players who we thought wasn't going to be on the team anymore, at least is playing this week.
Yeah, something really interesting here for Black Dragons as a whole. Not only is Vector here, but Vector's playing the Mei. Been very popular as of late to really displace and kind of to separate the 3-3 composition that Isurus is presenting itself here. As for with the Black Dragons composition altogether, they will have Ellie Zinnia in here playing the honor role, where we thought that Vector would be filling in the role, but now Vector is on the DPS. So really exciting stuff to see Vector still playing with Black Dragons, and even more impressive that they're really holding Isurus at bay at this opening token, 25% of their control meter so far.
Isurus has only played on this map once, of course, in Contenders, because this is our, first time around after we played our 3 maps of control. Currently already losing 36% here on this one as the Graviton Surge comes out here. And we have them still pushing forward for Black Dragons. Matthias trying to stay alive on the point. Isurus trying to get back control here. And now the eliminations start to come through them after they lived through that grab.
Yeah, living through the Graviton Surge. They didn't even use all too many resources to take that point. Isurus Gaming only threw out the Earth Shatter and the Transcendence in that last fight. So they're going to be able to hold here for a good one. I mean, when you look at their ult economy, that is, they're going to have the Rally Soul, all that armor just to sit underneath the armor that's already sitting 4x Ravage in between the shielding and the HP for DDX. We know that he can do a lot of work when he is sustained properly, but more importantly, Matthias has that Graviton Surge for the reentry. Black Dragons, they're just about to get that sound barrier to deal with it, and they really have no clear-cut way to take this point in the near future.
No way to eat that, as well as the Graviton Surge does come out, and Beast is able to get 2 with the self-destruct. Nice fire strike with Beast charging into Winning King to get that elimination, as well as Black Dragons go back towards their spawn. Better getting caught out, though, and oh, this poor Anna. And Ellie Zinnia, one of the new players on this team for Black Dragons. Nothing they could do there, but just watch their life go away.
I chuckled there just a little bit because they still threw out the rally, never in the end. Like you were mentioning, they have no Diva card, so they can't actually eat the Graviton Surge that just got chucked in there by Matthias. It's almost free for Isurus Gaming to hold this next 50%, so Black Dragons are going to re-enter this point with a Blizzard, and they're going underneath this time.
They got the flip, too. The Boop was able to keep everybody away enough where they weren't able to get back control, but DDX going off on the Zenyatta gets Elysia and Nitro at the beginning, and then found Vetter as well, completely just destroying with this Zenyatta, of course, having a lot of damage coming out from the rest of his team.
It was such a good heads-up play by Isurus Gaming as a whole. They let Black Dragons take the point, and then they just kind of collapsed on them. They let DDX set up on the high ground, which is where the Zenyatta is most comfortable. Charging up the Transcendence, he took no pressure whatsoever. He still has that armor underneath the shielding. And speaking of that armor, Jane is going to pull out another rally. And Black Dragons, they are just being absolutely suppressed in this little hallway. Isurus Gaming are absolutely holding the door here, Labasco.
Mei wall to try to get through. Graviton Surge into the Mei wall, grabs everyone for Isurus, but the only problem is his steel was gone in the beginning of the fight. Using the Transcendence to keep everybody up. X Ravage very close to falling, gets healed up though, thanks to that armor pack. And DDX again fighting the backline.
And right out of the Transcendence too, using that Zenyatta right at the end to get in the proper positioning. Black Dragons now, they're looking at their adversaries of Isurus Gaming, 97% of their control meter. Vector has a Blizzard. They throw the Graviton Surge. They're still fighting in the small room, and Black Dragons can't get back to the point. Let's take this a little bit more time to just talk about this roster change with Ellie Zinnia coming into this roster, filling in that main support. Not an easy set of shoes to fill, especially this late into the season. This is week 4 of Contenders so far, and Black Dragons have a chance to really play upset to Isurus Gaming, more or less hold them down to where they are in the standings. Isurus Gaming, however, like I was saying before, the armor was really set into DDX's health bar there. when you set up a Zenyatta of this man's caliber, he will find those shots. He will find the orbs of destruction to the enemies. And just when you thought there were no DPS on the field, you slept on my man Zenyatta.
DDX has definitely been one of the heroes, but Black Dragons, I think they can maybe take a little solace in the fact that they did win that fight at the end. If they could have gotten back to the point, they could have flipped it and potentially won.
You could have potentially won. So now you can see Black Dragons looking to take a little bit of a different route. That route is in the sky with Elzenia on the Mercy and Vetter on the far this time, looking to break apart the GOAT's composition that Isurus Gaming are still playing on. That's a lot of armor and a lot of healing just to chunk through. And DDX lands an Orb of Destruction with the Discord Orb onto that far. It's as good as out of the sky with Beast following up.
Nitro on the Tracer as well, and it's working at least at the start. X-Ravage falling. Vetter does get DDX out of this fight, though. So, not too bad of a start, but the point is being controlled by Isurus Gaming. X-Ravage still staying alive in this fight, and Vetter not really building up that barrage as fast as maybe he'd like.
It's the other problem that Faras will have when they're facing a 3-3 composition. It's so much shielding, it's so much armor that you have to chunk through, and when you don't land those direct rockets on this new Pharah of this patch, you're not going to get the barrage as quickly as you used to. Black Dragons, they're hesitating on where they can enter this point because they have no big burst frontline healing. They have a Mercy and a Zenyatta, and that Mercy is pocketing Vetter in the sky, who's not finding any value.
The next Ravage just cleaves his way through and fire strikes into another to keep pushing Isurus Gaming forward and maintaining control of that point.
And continued control, and it's going to be hard for Black Dragons to find their way in the moments of time. Vetter will have the barrage, and to get close enough, I guess you could out-damage the armor and the healing that Isurus Gaming are playing with. They're about to have that rally from Jane, so it's a lot more sustainability than Black Dragons really want to break apart, so they need some help. So they're calling into their space friend, the Hamster, and with Stilo coming back in just to land a good pile drive on the back line, so that way DDX is preoccupied, is probably where the barrage is going to be able to be properly played with.
Well, the thing is, the barrage just got built up to now. Graviton Surge is an opportunity to potentially use it. That out comes the defensive Alton Sound Barrier. Now the Transcendence, and Vetter quickly gets eliminated out of the sky thanks to everything that happened there. But Tias still fighting in this, finds himself Winnie King as he quickly falls in here. Vetter is just rezzed back into the fight, but it's not going to matter here. Isurus Gaming cleaning up again.
A Resurrection prolonging the inevitable. Vetter needs to swap. As far as it hasn't been finding value since the spawn gates open. You can tell because the damage boost in rockets that Elzenia has been pocketing through Vetter. Still yet to have a Valkyrie, and we're in that last path territory where Steela needs to go onto the point quickly to just get the control meter going in overtime, but they get shattered and Graviton together, and now Black Dragons can't get to the point once again, and Isurus Gaming will take Busan in a clean 2-0.
Incredible start to this one, I think, for Isurus. After they stumbled a little bit at the beginning, Panda, I mean, just your thoughts here on map number one. After, I mean, it looked like Black Dragons was like, whoa, they came out with some fire here. And then all of a sudden, Isurus was like, yeah, no. We just need to get warm up.
And just give us a second to warm up a little bit, because that May was a little cold. And I think that when you're Isurus Gaming coming out on Mecha Center, the May is strongest on that map in particular. We've seen it come out on a multitude of maps, more importantly, escort maps with those first point holds. But when you take Mecha Center with those walls going up and down at a moment's notice during a team fight, when you add in the maze wall as a fourth wall, it really kind of adds the enemy, it throws the enemy team for a loop, right? And when you just come out of the gates with it, where Mecha Center has been a very tank-heavy map, as all maps have, it's been 3-3 for many months at this point, but you are almost expecting it that when you get trapped with that May wall, it's just like your competitive matches at home. You don't walk through those choke points expecting the May to be there, because you want to just try to get into that team fight that it really threw Isurus game for a loop. Black Dragons, on the other hand, were just kind of taking advantage of Isurus Gaming not knowing how to attack the objective against the May. But when they pulled out the Pharah there on Sanctuary, it was a little bit of a different direction. You don't have the big bursting heals on the front line like I was mentioning for the Winston and the Zarya just to walk up and take clean dives. This is where the Ana would be able to come into play. The Pharah is unable to find enough value, so the Mercy isn't getting that fast Valkyrie, and that was really the chance for Black Dragons to take Sanctuary, even to flip the control meter just for a little bit, but they couldn't find that chance, that opening for Vetter was being heavily suppressed by the armor of Isurus Gaming.
And even when Vetter did build up to that rocket barrage, finally, Panda, didn't even matter because was quickly eliminated out of the sky. But waited for the right time to use the barrage. Only problem was didn't matter because Isurus was prepared for it. So I guess the biggest question here for Black Dragons is Vetter being back. I think at least for this game today, we don't know as far as how far he will be games after this. We know that at least today he is, but he was listed as a free agent going into this. One of the things we weren't sure of was what were maybe one of the other pickups that were happening, and we're seeing it's Elizina. And so far, I mean, you can't say much. It's only been one map, but I don't think that there's been any hindrance because of the play of Elizina.
It's hard to gauge. It's hard to gauge here, just in general, from a few handful of team fights in control altogether. Black Dragons still seem to be missing that step. With Isurus Gaming coming back in the ult economy all the way back to Mecha Center when they were held against the ropes by Black Dragons, you can still see that that composed play that we expect for teams to adapt to. That one team fight is always going to play back in my mind where they just let Black Dragons waltz onto the point. They gave up the control meter, let them take comfort zoning onto the point, and then they just collapse on them. That's that composed play that I'm talking about. And Black Dragons seem to be missing that. When you continuously bring in different supports, you're playing around with your roster a lot. Shanoff and Vetter playing different roles. And now the implication or the enabling Elizina on this Ana, there's a lot at play there. And it comes down to just consistency, and it comes down to just playing with your team as a whole. That when Elizina is being brought into South American Contenders as a whole, it's going to be difficult to adapt to the play styles that this region has been offering. As an Ana, you almost need that Lucio, which was missing on Sanctuary from the team composition of Black Dragons. Very difficult, nevertheless, but that one little misstep for Black Dragons composition could have spelled a little bit more sustainability and peel for that Ana. Even Mecha Center can be included.
And now we're going to go to Hollywood as our next map. Panda, how does that change things as far as what we've already seen from Black Dragons? I mean, should we expect maybe a little more wrinkles thrown in there from them?
I think it's definitely possible. I think at this point going forward, I'm gonna hop on with the desk that it's the wild card time, right? Black Dragons, they need to be implementing here as many different iterations, as many compositions as they possibly can. Now, as we load into Hollywood, it can definitely go down that route, pun intended, right? As we're going down streets, so you could play a multitude of heroes. We know that Ashe isn't available yet, but you can pull out the Widowmaker, the Hanzo to control the high ground. On point A, Pharah is still very strong if you can play over the server room as you're attacking. And I think Isurus Gaming and Black Dragons, they both have that wild card potential to throw out here. So that way they can really take the advantage, because like the desk was saying, Isurus Gaming, everybody in this group, you need to dodge that 4th seed to not face base tryhards in the opening round of the playoffs.
Well, they'll definitely try to avoid that for Isurus Gaming. They're already up 1-0 here, looking to win their second map, playing defense here first. Black Dragons coming down that main way now, looking for where they want to go. Shanoff's going to get up onto the high ground. Oh, but is quickly ambushed and is taken down. Great ambush coming out from the side of Isurus Gaming. They weren't sure where they were. The normal place you put that Sonic Arrow didn't show them anything, and Black Dragons has to be pushed back into spawn.
And going back to that proverbial drawing board, now they're coming out here with a very awkward 1-2-3 composition. They have the triple support with the Mercy and the Zenyatta with Vetter on the Brigitte. So the idea here is to over-sustain Stilo on this Reinhardt to push so far forward that Shanoff is protected by way of space, so that way he can find these shots and they can build up to a bigger combination with the Dragon Strike and the Graviton. But you can see how hard it is to play with that. There's so much shielding again that Shanoff has to get through that Isurus Gaming are just pushing them back.
Stilo went for the aggressive push forward as well and didn't find anything because of it and ended up losing his life. So instead of winning that fight and creating something, he falls and they have to regroup again.
Here's another difference too in between the two compositions. We haven't seen too much Diva coming out from Black Dragons, in particular when they're playing these compositions. They like to front on that 1 DPS. This time it's Shanoff on the Hanzo. Without that Diva, you can't necessarily mitigate all the damage that's being pumped in. Matthias with that charge is already going to have a Graviton Surge, and Ravage laying down that Shatter early.
Yeah, didn't get anything with the Shatter, that was the only problem. And now using the Transcendence aggressively is Black Dragons into this fight. Graviton Surge in response after it ends, catches a couple, and they're able to swarm their way into that fight. Matthias, Beast, and Jane combining for those eliminations.
Yeah, and it just comes down to that one different iteration. Take yourself back a couple metas ago, that it's the Protect the Mercy. No, the Mercy doesn't have those big resurrections anymore, but it's still a lot of healing that Valkyrie can offer. You almost need some sort of verticality in the Widowmaker, the Hanzo, to be playing more on the high ground. We haven't seen too many options force Shonoff to take the high ground on that villa that's right in front of him here. Isurus Gaming are just playing like that well-oiled machine that we know them to be doing against Black Dragons.
Very clean so far. The grab gets eaten as well. Nitro's grab not finding anything, and that ends up just being a waste of a Dragon Strike as well. So now they're down in alt economy. Shonoff just desperately trying to build that back up, try and find something with that barrage of arrows, and it hasn't so far. Self-destruct forcing back the team in Black Dragon. CeeLo will get the bubble there and be able to push his way back forward. Blocks part of the shatter. No, didn't block it. His shield went down, and Isurus Gaming capitalizes afterwards, cleaning up again. And just Winnie King and the Mercy trying to get away, but they won't be able to.
Nice.
DDX is on the hunt.
Yeah, you can just see right there, we finally get some of that first-person perspective of just how clean DDX's Orbs of Destruction land onto the enemies. Alazina threw out that Valkyrie towards the end of that team fight. Black Dragons are going to have a hard time re-engaging here. That Shield Bash combo still in existence in Contenders, if you can believe it. Matias with the flank grab finds 4. Beautifully done.
Did not check for it. Matias did lose his life to himself, which is okay, though. His team... Oh, actually, this might be where they have to fall back, it looks like. They couldn't get that elimination.
Oh, no.
Dead X Ravage looks like he might have gotten caught out by the Maywall. And Jane and X Ravage fall, so now control of the point goes to Black Dragon. So the little misstep there, Panda, looks like will cost them.
Yeah, a little over-aggression play coming out from Matias. Not enough follow-up there. The wall coming out again. Vether go ahead and flexing how good the May still is when you're facing a 3-3 composition. You break line of sight from the Zenyatta, the Lucio, even the Inspire from Jane. That's a lot of healing out of the way. And when X Ravage isn't a part of that party of the inspiration that Brigitte brings to the table, and the Zarya, that's a lot of damage gone. But look at that with the re-engage. They respawn and are already taking it back to the car.
Didn't even matter that half the team was hit too by an Earth Shatter because they couldn't do anything about it. Shonoff just hiding right now, doesn't want to lose his life early on. It gets like, oh, DDX was so close with that volley of destruction. Orbs didn't quite get him.
It's still ult charge nevertheless. Look at DDX's charge, 71% now off those back-to-back headshots against Winnie King, 60%. Transcendence is going to be available here for Nitro. He just needs to be careful when he's throwing out his Graviton Surge. It doesn't get eaten, but it gets blocked by a box. Very unlucky.
Nothing caught in it. Dragon Strike again, not getting value, but maybe here the Blizzard can use of his wall, catches a few inside of it. Nicely done by Vetter. Only problem is incoming from behind was X-Ravaged with that giant hammer that he's carrying.
Yeah, that giant hammer has been doing a lot of work, and those Earth Shatters are about to be coming through once more in this next team fight. In a minute 30 left on the board for Black Dragons to get some sort of attack through the streets phase. It's still really nice that they unlock the payload and they're seeing any sort of light here. The Valkyrie ultimate should help Shonoff get the high ground momentarily, so that way he can build up to another Dragon Strike. Will beat Nitro up to that Graviton Surge, but never in the end, it's still a decent amount of damage. You can break apart the armor of Isurus Gaming.
Only problem is there was an Earth Shatter available for X Ravage, and he's able to step in front of the shield and catch everyone. They throw in the grab as well by Matias just to ensure that they get those limbs. They do lose their main tank, but I think they're okay with that. Nobody else lost their life.
Yeah, and they're able to hold on to the Valkyrie too. Winnie King going over to the Lucio. That is a big play as we get a nice little replay of this shatter here. The over-aggression from the charge. Stilo did not even see it coming. He was just trying to do that big Reinhardt dance that we know them to do back and forth, and X Ravage just lays it down. Shonoff playing on the card this time. We'll have the Dragon Strike. Just needs to be careful of the self-destruct. Oh my god!
Finds two because of that, right as you're saying it from Beast. And Isurus Gaming, 30 seconds left before they can start and try and take this attack to Black Dragons. I mean, but looking at it so far, Panda, it's just everything's going Isurus' way. Only problem is they have no ults.
Last team fight available, they will have the Transcendence, so it's wishful thinking for Nitro to actually get this Graviton Surge in this next few seconds here. The swap for Stilo onto the Hamster just to get back to the point. You can see that he just needs to throw the Dragon Strike just so that way they can get coverage through the choke line and get to the point. Forces DDX's Transcendence out.
That's the night. Oh, they couldn't get back.
Oh,
they couldn't get back.
You hate to see it.
They couldn't get back to the point, and it was weird. I wonder if they got the sound glitch that we got as well, though, Panda, because for me, there wasn't that, the sound glitch happened where you couldn't hear the countdown or anything like that. So I wonder if that happened for Black Dragons. Regardless, though, this is where their push stops.
It's hard to honestly say, right? I mean, there were multiple opportunities, regardless of the fact part of the game of Overwatch is checking that time clock up at the top, and we had a Hamster over on the Defender side. Could have probably gotten to the point. Some minor bits of miscommunication, desynchronization that Black Dragons are facing, and it goes back to that previous point that we were talking about. So we were wrapping up a Busan, was that you just need to be careful when you're implementing all these different roles and roster changes that Black Dragons are seeing, that there can be a lot of desync, a lot of not muscle memory play, but they're necessarily playing for that that consolation prize of going extra for that frag or that kill. But in the game of formal, in a 6v6 scenario, this isn't just like your competitive matches. You need to play more cautiously, save your ultimates, use them in a more timely fashion. I know that sounds very foreheadish of me, but it's kind of what it is at the end of the day. And Black Dragons, they took a dive a little bit too far in the passive Overwatch with the 2-2-2 composition, the Mercy Zenyatta, and then the Lucio. It just wasn't enough to sustain the front line of the Reinhardt and the Zarya. You almost need that third support of the Brigitte, the burst healing or the speed, plus the Transcendence, all available. It's more than just a funny composition at this point with the name. It's more of just a quality of life for your Reinhardt, so that way you can set yourself up for a team fight victory. Isurus Gaming just continuously showing us why it's a very strong composition and why it's played very consistently across multiple regions.
And that's basically what we're going to have here, I think, is the mirror. Oh, Stilo actually is on the Doomfist is what we have instead. So Shaunov has gone over to that main tank role. So we've had a switching of roles here, and Stilo actually getting that first elimination will force back Isurus Gaming.
It's just like it's kind of like Busan in that way, right? Like, but Isurus Gaming are going to waltz to the point. They're expecting some sort of wonkiness from Black Dragons, but this time they're going to be coming out with a Vector, like you were mentioning, going to go and flex over to that off-tank role that we know him, especially from the Overwatch World Cup group stage. Stilo this time on the Doomfist, and Isurus Gaming, they weren't really expecting it, but they weren't expecting that charge either.
Stilo's going to fall, though. Isurus Gaming able to readjust, keep themselves composed, know what they saw, and then make the correct adjustments. They didn't have to make any comp adjustments, just how they played it, and now they've already have the point captured and are so close to that golden box of victory already.
Yeah, I like when teams just know, so they're like, oh, a Doomfist. Okay, well, now we just need to do it like this. And very interesting charge from X-Ravage altogether. It took Shaunov all the way to the back boxes of the point, the capture point that is, and Black Dragons find themselves against the ropes once again. Like you were saying, the capture point is right there, and the Graviton Surge is already out from Matthias.
Eliminating everybody, 2 players quickly falling. Transcendence to keep everyone up by DDX, and Dallas Fuel logo gets thrown out there, and we get to see that. And X-Ravage showing off his very high sensitivity and just trying to make everybody feel like they're on a roller coaster.
The sensitivity's pretty high, yeah, man. You gotta sometimes you just gotta cleave everything. It's not just what's in front of you. You gotta cleave everything, my guy. With that being said, it's not without a doubt that Isurus Gaming are definitely getting the fight brought to them. Ravage is doing a good job of keeping himself on the front line and continuously keeping up with the pressure. And really taking advantage of the lack of sustainability that Black Dragons are allowing their front line to have. We're going to have to see if they take any of the adjustments coming out of this half, but Black Dragons are still having some bright spots regardless of their stumbles of the roster.
They may be stumbling a little bit, but our desk never stumbles, so they can tell us about what they thought of these first 2 games. Obviously, Isurus Gaming looking really good. So go ahead, take it away. Green, Havoc, Frito, and Paulsable.
Isurus Gaming looking a little good is one way to put it. They were a little thrown for a loop. They were like, oh, I didn't see that May coming. I didn't see that wall coming. But then again, I don't think Black Dragons Graviton saw that wall coming either. So
Too soon, dude.
Paulsable, when it comes to Black Dragons, I mean, it definitely a little bit of some roster issues, some communication stuff. But what do you think's really going on with this team for this match?
I think honestly, this just goes to show how important a couple things are. One, communication, right? Because when you throw a graph into a May wall, you can't argue that there's no communication issue there, unless they were going for some crazy intelligent play, 8,000 IQ that didn't work. But you generally speaking, that's a communication issue, especially when it got nobody, right? So you have to look at this team and say, okay, they've had a lot of roster switch-ups, they've had role swaps. We saw 4 different players in those 2 maps play an off-tank role, right? So they're definitely trying to find their footing still, and it's really late in the season to still be trying to do that, right? Like, they've had so many issues at this point that the synergy just isn't locking together.
Mhm.
I'd love for them to clean it up in the second half, but they need to pick something and stay with it at this point. And I'd love to see them pick the meta, because it is the most efficient tactic available. That's why we assigned that acronym to that. But at this rate, if you're gonna play weird stuff, just optimize it.
Yeah, and I also think as far as moving forward, thinking just where Black Dragons goes from here, it's important to know what players are worth keeping, what players are worth building on and expanding upon.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, they've got a talented bunch. We've talked about that before. It's not like these players are subpar in any way. It's just this is the difference between when a team is playing, disorganized, more solo queue style Overwatch versus a team that is playing well together. Now, Frito, as far as Isurus Gaming, they have been looking pretty good today. They've been looking, really coordinated and moving in as a unit. So, and this is what they needed to clinch some playoff spots. So, what do they need to continue bringing into the second half that we saw in the first half?
Don't let your foot off the gas, definitely. I mean, every map matters, as we said. The map differential definitely comes into play as the playoff picture is starting to take shape here in those last 2 weeks. I really like, for example, them playing the Birgitta character. I don't know if you guys have heard of her. She's quite effective right now. Black Dragons haven't really seemed to enjoy using the character thus far. Partially due to because maybe it's sort of a teamwork thing. It was something that they struggle with this meta. It became very clear that it's not something they're comfortable in. But the meta is the meta for a reason, as Paul was trying to explain. So just running that really stable 3-3 composition is all I think they needed to do to take this victory, because as we see, Black Dragons is trying to throw the curveballs, trying to put the pharmacy in the sky and play around a little bit with Wrecking Ball and setting that stuff up. But turns out even the DPS play, in order to try to counter Goats, is possibly even harder than running Goats itself. So they're going to have a bit of a struggle moving forward. But as we said, a lot of these players on that Black Dragons roster are definitely, they have the skills, but they're at the moment more of a team of individuals, and we're in a team play meta. So all Isurus has to do is stay the course, keep out playing those Mei walls, which, by the way, I think Vetter's Mei so far this season has been a major highlight for me on Black Dragons. I think that's about as much Mei value as you can expect to get, other than walling off your own grav. Try not to do that. But other than that, some really good splits, and you saw how it looked to maybe make an edge in a few of these fights. But most of the time, Isurus has been quite unflappable, even up against the Mei, where they're calling in these crucial situations of, do we back up? Do we full commit? I mean, there was a clip there on the A attack where Ravaged, he was full committing. He's committing all the way to Hollywood, to like the next map. He's charging all the way in. The team's working together, and that's a beautiful thing to see, especially if you're a fan of this team who wants to see them reclaim their former glory.
Very true, very true. So we do have to get ready to send it back to the casters, get into that second half. But I'm going to ask you this, Plausible, before we get out of here. Who's the player that needs to step up for Black Dragons to have a chance? We've seen them struggle with the teamwork, so it's got to rest on someone's shoulders. Who helps them claim a map?
I'm going to say whoever they decide they want to put on Brig, assuming they're going to put anybody on Brig. We saw a Brig come out 1 or 2 times for about 30 seconds each. When we went to Hollywood, right? So there is a chance, right? And in this meta, because, reminder for those watching at home, this is not the live patch. This isn't even the patch before live. This is all the way back in 1.29. So those patches we saw come out Tuesday, where Brig can't bash through shields anymore, that's still in. She can still do that in this patch. So those bash shatter combos, rather, still very important. We saw Isurus pulling them off with perfection almost every single time, right? So you need to get on the same page. You need to play as a team. And you can play weird stuff. Stilo on the Doomfist worked for a moment, right? But you need to all be doing the same thing. 6 players listening to a bad call will always be better than 6 players all making their own individual good calls, right?
It's very true. We've heard quite a few Overwatch League players say that the most overpowered ability in Overwatch is good communication. But we are going to throw it over to a quick break while we get everyone organized and ready for the second half. You'll see Panda in Labosco in just a bit. We'll be right back.
drinking and smoking yourself. Don't even wanna try. Make room for somebody else. Oh, I just wanna hide out from under all these indecisions. Oh, make room for somebody else. Circling the edge, way up high. Don't know if I'll ever have a useful alibi. Gone too far to stop. Yeah, I tried. Flying, crashing, looking for a perfect suicide. Circling the edge.
I wake up early, I sleep alone. I try to find love from a stranger on my phone. My vision blurry, so I forget. Dying to hold you, but you left me here for dead. How could I do what I've done if I'm in love? You know I did what I did, you loaded the gun. Don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. Yeah. Didn't mean to do it every day. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. Don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. Messing with monsters up in my head. Lie to myself, lying beside her in my bed. Paint over pictures you left behind. I'd punch the walls if it would make you change your mind. How could I do what I've done if I'm in love? You know I did what I did, you loaded the gun. And I don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. Yeah. Didn't mean to do it every day. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. Don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. How could I do what I've done if I'm in love? You know I did what I did, you loaded the gun. And I don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. Yeah. Didn't mean to do it every day. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. I do it anyway. Don't wanna think about you anyway. I do it anyway. I do it anyway.
I met you on a Friday, downtown Avenue Way. I didn't know that you were gonna be my getaway. I swear I never left. So light it up and feel the rest. Here's how you wanna be remembered. Feeling blue side streets, cold like December. Is this what you came so far for? And I know you're worth more. So why don't we go and leave the city and drive past concrete? And I know it's so pretty, but I can't do it no more. So why don't we go and leave the city and drive past concrete? And I know it's so pretty, but I can't do it no more. Why don't we go
Back here on Broadcast.gg, it's Labasco and Panda. Also, weren't we called thieves earlier? Weren't we stealing something? Isn't that what I heard Green Havoc say, Panda?
We steal the light from the
Yes.
show. That is
Yes,
right.
that's right. That's
My light now.
We don't, because we have awesome players that we get to watch. Isurus Gaming versus Black Dragons is the match that we're currently in. It's 2-0 right now in favor of Isurus Gaming. We heard the desk talk about them, Panda. They're looking really good. You heard Pulsable really questioning there not being a brig, but you mentioned earlier there have been some bright spots for Black Dragons, but they need to have something happen here when they go to Horizon Lunar Colony, which, you know what? I think this is the one of the first times in this group where somebody's gone to Horizon Lunar Colony. Well, Black Dragons did go there earlier. That's right, they did go back there a little bit, but still, second time here that we get to in this group.
Yeah, I think it's just the third time overall that we're going to Horizon here in South America Contenders. So you can tell that the South America regions, they don't really like space cheese all too much. They don't like going to the moon. So it's they're a little allergic. It's fine. It's cool. They're space lactose intolerant. But I think that Black Dragons, as a whole, they definitely are showing those bright spots in a way that they're engaging themselves with a little bit different of an attack for this meta, right? So with that being said, they're pulling out the Mei, they're pulling out the Hanzo, they're actually pulling out a 2-2-2 composition. And you see I tripped over it because I haven't said it in such a long time. I don't think myself or Isurus Gaming that they were expecting it, that if they can keep pulling those rabbits out of the hat, they can keep pulling out tricks from their sleeves. I think Isurus Gaming are going to continue to have a match on their hands, but will Black Dragons continue to stray away from even playing Brigitte, the strongest hero in this patch? Like Paul said on the desk, this is 1.29. This isn't live patch. This isn't even 1.3. I mean, you have to be careful. You have to sustain your Reinhardt so far into the in the middle of the team fight, that he exists to get at least an Earth Shatter and a half in the next 45 seconds. That's just what this tank-driven meta is all about. Going forward off that, those bright spots with the Mei, separating the enemy 3-3 composition, we've seen it in a multitude of regions, especially in North American Contenders where it's worked out so well, just where teams are really caught off guard. If you can continuously do that, I can see Black Dragons really pulling ahead here. But implementing, again, going back to my original point of implementing this new support player, it's going to continue to cause deficits, not only for communication, but trust for where your Reinhardt is able to play. A good point to bring up, some little insight from your caster of your third match of the day. We were just sitting here discussing in the middle of a break. Herrick's like to mention here the big fact that the only consistency that we have here for Black Dragons is Stilo when he is playing some Zarya. Otherwise, as a whole, Black Dragons have been messing around with their roles. They haven't really been consistency playing the same heroes, especially for Vetter, who started off this season as a support. Used to play Flex Tank, where we got to see a little bit of that for the Overwatch World Cup group stage. And now he's playing that tried and true DPS, which isn't too far because we know that his hero pool is extensive. But Black Dragons as a whole, they have been really engaging in role swapping.
And you don't have to worry about doing any role swapping if you become a broadcaster at Broadcast.gg, because we help you grow as one of those. We're constantly creating opportunities for exposure and practice, just like this one, collaborating and pushing esports forward. So if you'd like to share your love of esports with us, just come. There's a link to the Discord down below. We're seeing here Black Dragons come out, and they're going to continue to just show us some new things, Panda. They've got themselves a wrecking ball, and Nitro is on the Tracer again, and he gets booped away, so he doesn't even get his opportunity to do his pile drive.
He gets halted away as he was coming down. You really hate to see. You almost hate to experience it as someone that plays a decent amount of hamster himself. It's really sad to see. Black Dragons are coming out with this hyper dive. It's working out because you almost aren't expecting a Genji and Tracer like all day. Shonoff getting that pick off of Jane, and that's a lot of damage for Isurus Gaming out.
And they didn't have any Brigitte to deal with it as well, I think is the one good thing for them, Panda. So Black Dragons is going to take a fairly quick first point, and you're already seeing the swaps come from Isurus.
And Black Dragons, they're able to take the fight from so many different angles. Yeah, the halt did take Stilo away from that pile driver, but they weren't able to deal with the backline damage that Shonoff and Nitro were bringing to the table. With Vetter taking that dive after Stilo pile drives, it's opening up a lot of space for Elizenia to set up a good sightline to land a lot of good darts off and keep those tanks alive. And they're about to have a Dragon Blade, and if they take a certain amount of poke damage for the tanks, they could actually get a nano boost here in the next 10 seconds.
Yep, they do have the Nano Blade at the very least. Elizina very close to that ultimate. Nitro building up to another Pulse Bomb as well here, already almost halfway there. Going to pop it without the Nano Boost is the decision here from Shonoff. Saw an opportunity to take down DDX. So DDX is gone and out, and he was so close to having that Transcendence, so that could be a big loss in this fight. Beast able to get Shonoff down, though, is the only thing. Nitro does get the Winston down into X Ravage, but his team is starting to try and turn this around. Oh, the Pulse Bomb missing is a big loss, and that should cause the regroup from Black Dragons.
You almost have to wonder if they're going to take swaps at this point, because this isn't a composition you normally take a point B of any assault map with. Black Dragons are not going to take any swaps. They're going to roll back out here with their core dive DPS, the Genji, and the Tracer. It's kind of like going to this GT dive esque. Instead of the Winston, you have the hamster. Nope, Nitro's actually going to go to the Widowmaker. So taking a little bit more sightlines. If they're able to find DDX in this back left corner, it's going to be taking the Discord Orb out. That seems to be the biggest play for Isurus Gaming and what they're playing around, because where that Discord Orb is where Ravage lands. With this Winston, they just need to be careful and worry about this armor that Jane is about to provide.
Self-destruct was thrown, didn't find anything. Shonoff throwing out his shuriken into players, not quite finding anyone. Transcendence has been forced at the very least, and sound barrier for Black Dragon, so they don't really have any defensive ults to work with here. Need Nitro to find something. Oh, almost the headshot onto DDX, but instead his team falls around him, and Nitro tries to escape with his life, but it looks like that's not going to happen.
Still looking for a little bit of damage there, building up to the infrared side. I mean, that's kind of what you do as a Widowmaker into triple tanks, especially for the defense. Not a lot of openings, especially DDX playing as close as he is. He always has a tank next to him. Nitro actually going to give up all that charge. Go over to the McCree silo this time, to the Winston. So a little bit closer to that GT dive. You can actually let Fetter play a little more defensively, proactively, use that defense matrix more sparingly to keep Elizenia in a proper position for heals. But when you do that, you get Shield Bash, Stilo, and then you get obliterated.
And we're still on patch 1.29, so the Shield Bash changes have not gone through, and that just leads to the snowball happening here, by the way. So not only do we have the Shield Bash not doing the damage that it does, but of course, you know, the healing isn't the same for Brigitte in this patch, that means.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have all the burst healing, but you still have the frontline pressure with that Shield Bash, like you were mentioning, Lebowski. You still travel through the bubble of Stilo, and he's going to get called off time and time again. More importantly, they're actually going to have the Shield Bash ready for him with this Dragon Blade that Shonoff has, but the Graviton Surge from Matthias so far forward, you might as well just make it worth, but it's an ultimate out of the way. Black Dragons didn't even have any defensive ults, so now they can use the sound barrier in the next engagement very aggressively. But speaking of aggressive, Isurus Gaming, they're being very composed here, and we're seeing just how well they are working together, knowing how close they can get to the enemy spawn door and backing up when they need to, really keeping Black Dragons against the ropes. And that being said, Vetter had to take the swap back and forth over to the Pile Diva for a new mech.
That's the second time in a row that's happened to Vetter, so potentially could have had a self-destruct already, but because of having to continually go back in, not the case, and now being forced back into spawn. I mean, they're pretty much spawn camping for Isurus here.
They are more than welcome to. I mean, they just used the Graviton Surge from Matthias in that last fight, and halfway to another one, no defensive support ultimates had to be used for Isurus Gaming. They still have Ravage's Primal Rage and the Self-Destruct from Beast. So they're able to hang out here for as long as they please until Black Dragons uses an ultimate or two. That's the point of the spawn camp. Here comes the sound barrier. The Elizenia didn't get the effects of it, so they're back to the spawn once more.
Primal Rage, throwing players back in. Won't eliminate them because it will actually cause them just to get healed, but that's okay. They can't get out of spun. It doesn't matter. And DDX just uses Destruction Orbs and finds Nitro regardless. So they're still in such a bad spot. There's another Graviton that can be used here to try and pull that Blading Genji in, but the Nano Boost in the Blade able to get away from it, swipe into the back line, but it went away too fast. Only problem is it didn't matter. Rest of the team is falling for Isurus Gaming as this self-destruct in desperation, thrown in an area that won't find anybody. They have to just get back towards point and wait for their respawn. So because they were so pushed forward, the respawns are coming back right onto point. And Black Dragons do at least have one tick, though.
Yeah, Black Dragons were able to punish the over-aggression from Isurus Gaming. They had to use their defensive, or their ultimates in a very precarious position. The self-destruct from Beast, more importantly, probably not all the value he wanted to hold on to that bigger bang combo with Matthias, but you can see yet again when Isurus Gaming are composed and together as a team, they just seem to really wipe the floor with Black Dragons. Black Dragons are doing a good job of offering themselves opportunities. The Blade towards the end with Shawnoff and the Nano Boost was really well timed against CDX's Transcendence. Burst damage for Vetter, able to catch out some core members of Isurus Gaming on the way back. So that way Kaizek couldn't use that sound barrier to keep themselves in this courtyard where you see Isurus Gaming holding again.
And of course, just a reminder, you get to 33%, you don't lose that. So at least one positive for Black Gaming has come out of all of this. They forced Isurus to at least be playing back onto the point. Matthias looking for an opportunity to use this grab. Gets onto Stylo, so close to falling. DDX, in the meantime, takes down the flanking Genji, and X-Ravage continuing to push forward will find Nitro as well. So the elimination's still pulling through for Isurus, and they just have this massive bank of ults that they can use at their disposal.
Now we get to see Black Dragons playing, I suppose, the most meta that you possibly can. What I mean by that is that when you take on to a point B attack of Horizon Unicorn, you almost want to have a six-pack of ultimates. Either Black Dragons was meaning to do it or not, they're going to have it available for them. They're just waiting for the Primal Rage and the Sound Barrier to round about, but the Nano Boost over to Shawnoff. Once again, the Blade can find a lot of damage. If it is timed against DDX's Transcendence in the Sound Barrier for Kaizek, Isurus Gaming has not taken any pressure, so they don't have any necessity to play so defensively.
Elizina fell first in that fight, so it didn't even matter that they had both of the ultimates that they wanted for that fight. Great dive came through from X-Ravage, and then there was enough follow-up damage to find the Ana.
It's a good thing that Black Dragons disengaged as quickly as they did. They used all the mobility from their heroes kits to get out a dodge when the pick from Elizina came through, so the Nano Boost play is still available. But look at Isurus Gaming, they are still holding so close. Shawnoff's gonna pull out the Blade, but the Transcendence and the Sound Barrier at the same time, that's the opening Black Dragons needs.
Exactly what the doctor ordered for them, and they have a sound barrier of their own to use as well into this fight. Overtime meter has started, though. Have to stay on the point if you're Black Dragons. DDX able to find Steel. Oh, no, they got off the point. They got booped off. It looked like nobody could get back on, and this is going to end their round, and Isurus Gaming in such a great spot to clinch themselves this win.
Optimistic Panda going to go ahead and stay 45.2% capture point of progress to point B for Black Dragons. The game is still in a winnable state. Just Black Dragons need to be careful and come out on top on most of these skirmishes, even when they were winning point contention, besides the point A capture point as a whole, just for what Assault and all of its nature is. It's such a long walk for the defenders to walk back, and saw it effectively that they're not really winning these skirmishes on a whole. They're not necessarily taking advantage of Isurus Gaming. There's a lot of more holes that Black Dragons can take advantage of here, whether it's finding Ravage out when he takes that dive into the backline. You can Discord Orb him, Sleep Dart him, and anti him all at the same time. It may seem like a dumpster of resources for Black Dragons to pump into, but that is how they found the first tick, all 45.1%, in fact, off of that over-aggression. They even had that opportunity for both support ultimates being used, but Nitro, again, threw that Graviton Surge out, and I believe it got eaten, regardless of the fact it didn't find any value. And it was such a long build-up that it's just such a letdown, unfortunately, that Black Dragons weren't able to see more control percentage on point B here. And now they're going to have to set up very, very defensively for either a full hold or on point A or for an elongated hold on point B.
As we do have a pause coming through here, though, so we will say hi to you once again. Labasco and Panda here with you. It's currently a 2-0 lead for Isurus Gaming. We had somebody drop on Isurus, so that's why we have the pause, Panda. Like you said, there was a lot of aggression coming out from Isurus, but don't you feel that maybe they were as aggressive as they... The reason they were as aggressive as they were was because they felt they could be and not get punished by it?
Absolutely. A better main tank than me once told me that in this current meta of Overwatch, the main tank needs to be so over aggressive that you need to not be afraid. You can't back down for many of those engagements. And you can see just how hard Ravage is flexing. That's not only because this Winston is quite literally popping off and going absolutely insane with his Primal Rages, continuously finding big dives to open up the enemy team for Beast and Matthias to follow up on all that damage. The Black Dragons, they seem to be lacking that extra flame, that extra spark inside their gas tank just to explode out of these opportunities. You need to pounce on it, even if you don't have where you would think the sustainability for the main tank to step to the side and take less damage. If you take that extra damage, that's the point of having the Ana on your team. For the bursty opportunity, you just need to watch out for the Discord Orb and protect yourself in those finer moments. But again, I don't want to sound too foreheadish against it. For Black Dragons, I would just say altogether, they need to take those opportunities and really assess them to where they can engage properly.
We're going to go with the triple support, triple tank lineup with the Brigitte. Nitro finds DDX at the beginning, so very great start here for the side of Black Dragons. Might force them to just regroup. They're going to go out into space here. We'll see if they decide to pressure them out. Looks like they're going to just let them stay out there, so in the vacuum of space is where Isurus will sit right now.
Got some like classic orchestral music playing right now for Isurus Gaming in space. They can't hear anything else, but they're coming out here with these the GT Ghost composition with the Moira instead of the Zenyatta or the Ana. What the offers is going to be a lot of burst healing and an enclosed environment. Just a lot of juice has to be sustained by damage for DDX to keep that healing available, and the orb can't be eaten by Shanoff either. The difference this time for Black Dragons, they actually have a diva. They're not running without it this time.
DDX coalescing into the start of this fight. Nitro, though, in the meantime, is able to take down the Brigitte, throws out the healing orb. I don't think it got to anybody in time. Steelo on this Junkrat, pumping out so much damage, keeping his team back in this, looking to throw those pipe bombs towards the back line here. 2 ticks already taken for the side of Isurus Gaming. Rez coming in, though, from the Mercy, keeps them in this fight. Vetter's still alive, too, on this Orisa. DDX so close to falling. But in the meantime, while they're fighting on that front line behind, everybody was falling.
Yeah, and the split spawns coming out from Black Dragons, surely going to be an elongated hold here, but it's surely to no avail. Black Dragons are going to be losing this point here. Good call for Shanoff not to pull out that self-destruct, but now he's going to get staggered out. So the snowball opportunity for Isurus Gaming is available. They have another Coalescence, sound barrier to sustain themselves through this next tick. And Fetzer is staying on this Orisa could be their demise, the last nail in the coffin for Black Dragons esports in this series.
Use the sound barrier preemptively. Nobody got back on. There was no communication from Black Dragons, and this is going to be the win for Isurus Gaming 3-0. Of course, we still have one more map, Panda, but again, there's another point where we see where the communication seems to be lacking for Black Dragons, where nobody got on the point.
And nobody able to get it's that little bit of desynchronization you really hate to see. I mean, we had our Orisa on the point, doing that proverbial dance that Orisas do when they're contesting a point for a decent amount of time, but when you have 4 legs and not a single hoof of them are on the point is when you really just do not like this Twitch emote. And you have to be careful of those situations. The sustainability wasn't really there. Getting forever staggered out there at the end from where the fight might have been holdable on point A, but the moment that they lost Ellie, the moment that Valkyrie wasn't an option for the point A hold after the resurrection to come through, was where Black Dragons surely found, like I said, that last nail in their coffin. You can't stay on the Orisa for point B defense. You'll just get booped around. You'll get absolutely bullied from your positioning, and you can't sustain yourself when you don't have a certain amount of burst healing in the Ana, the armor pack from the Brigitte. As we take a few looks at these back to the match of Horizon, and just as a whole, I think Black Dragons, again, they're really just beating themselves here. I could see one hero in the realm of Overwatch that would give them a little bit more opening in these team fights, and that would be the Brigitte. Here you see the spawn camp from Isurus Gaming again. Ravage right of the spawn gates could be dealt with inside the bubble just by one simple shield bash, and then could end up being damaged down because they're playing those high damage characters if the critical hits are taken for Black Dragons, but they're not presenting themselves with the opportunities.
I really want to be. I want to make sure that I say this correctly though, because for Black Dragons, even with that, there's still been opportunities for them to take advantage of certain things in fights, and they still aren't able to do it. I think that fight at the end, it's not just losing the Mercy right at the beginning, but you also have to remember they lost the D.Va before Isurus even got to the point. They staggered out the D.Va so well after they won that point that they were already in a 6v5 situation. I guess the biggest shock for me is that they're, even though it's probably a losing fight, nobody's getting back onto the point. And those are the things that are really, I think, more troubling than, sure, they're trying different and weird comps. We expected this though, right? So the fact that they're missing on some of these things that are pretty basic, I think, is the thing that's a little bit more alarming for me than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's actually well said. Never in the end. It's kind of those wonky compositions that can be played. I mean, surely coaching staffs a lot smarter than me have probably even theorized for these compositions to try to be implemented. Sure, as teams have scrimmed them as well, but then the enemy team just goes goats and then you just get run over. I mean, there's a reason why it's the strongest composition in the game. And the patch right now, it's just so difficult when you see teams try to stray away from it, and you can almost tell that it's just not going to work. Now, as we're loading into the next map that is Route 66, some things could be a little bit different here. We could see some more hit scans being played, but I think that's just more of Ravage's opening. He loves that Winston play. His Winston is a bigger standout than his Reinhardt, and Isurus Gaming looked to be very well toned in that that Winston Goats composition rather than the Reinhardt, and I think that's where Black Dragons are really having a hard understanding, that they seem to be very prepared if they were facing a Reinhardt 3-3 rather than the Winston, but Ravage is just doing too much work. He's just creating so much space.
So who would you want to play the Brigitte for Black Dragons? Because I think that's a question to be asked, because maybe the problem for them right now is they're not sure who should play it if they don't have anybody who does. But I think the other thing too, they are now out. They are not going to be able to make playoffs. They are going to be in one of those bottom two spots, regardless of any other outcomes that can happen. Even if they were to win every map from here on out, they are officially eliminated mathematically every way possible is Black Dragon. So now, is this the time when you do experiment more? Is that maybe what their thought process was?
I don't think so. I don't think you need to experiment at all. I mean, for Contenders as a whole, we've seen it from two players in particular, for Klaus and Alamung, who have made it up to NA Contenders and Overwatch League as a whole. This is do or die for any team, for any competitive player in any region. You can't show any signs of giving up, that you need to give your all, regardless of Black Dragons being out of the playoff contention, that you still want to be putting your best foot forward, because let's say that you continue to pop off here and then you get picked up by a playoff team, or you get picked up in the beginning of the 2019 season. There are always trials happening behind the scenes, and you always want to make yourself look marketable. And I think that's most important for all these players going out of the season. But it's going to be Black Dragons taking their attack. They're going to come out here with the Mercy Zenyatta healing composition, Vetter on the Widowmaker for that verticality, and Stilo for the displacement of the punch and the Doomfist.
Kai'Zak falls at the beginning of the fight to Vetter, who's able to put some pressure on with this Widowmaker. Finally, the D.Va and Beast starts to push towards him. Beast has every elimination so far, and now DDX is going to join in on the fun, though. And they'll get this cart rolling here soon for Isurus game, or sorry, they're defending, Black Dragons are not going to get this cart rolling, I should say. I don't think they've moved it yet.
No, it hasn't moved. It hasn't even budged. Isurus Gaming, they're going back to their old trickery. They're going to go with the spawn camping situation. And the Reinhardt 3-3 can do that, but here's the more problematic situation is that when you have Stilo being able to use the movement very effectively, punching out one member, it should generate to one frag over for Black Dragons, but they're not finding any of those final blows. Those eliminations aren't going over to Black Dragons, so Isurus Gaming are still able to hold themselves in this train car and play around with the armor, not take all the shield pressure that you need to, and then you hit the gas button from the speed boost. Kai'Zak, they counts on one enemy.
Swaps continue to come out too from Black Dragons. DDX eliminates Stilo at the beginning here as well. Have the res quickly being used. Ooh, DDX very close to getting that headshot from the Widowmaker, and Vetter has to use Transcendence because of the Doomfist, but his team's still in a pretty good spot. Nitro did take Jane down there though, so they do lose their Brigitte. They do lose a lot of that utility.
Yeah, Elizenia getting as much healing done as possible. Just trying to set up and play around the Black Dragons team as much as possible. Here comes that flexibility that much more. Shanoff going to give up the tank pants, going to go over to the Hanzo instead. Nitro is now solo tanking, so it's going to be even more difficult because they don't have the Brigitte for the front line. They don't have the burst healing with the Mercy and the Zenyatta. And Ravage is just free to do whatever he wants, walk around the corner for the shield bash and the Earth Shatter combo.
Beast has been able to do whatever they want to. Beast finding 2 with the self-destruct. Stylo coming in back, looking for the Brigitte again. Not going to get it. The players starting to back away here for Isurus. They want to have another hold. Oh, but the nice use of the Storm Arrows along with the Doomfist will take down Kaizek and Jane. So they are now in a really good spot to get this card at least to where Big Earls is. I'm in 27 to get to Big Earls.
Yeah, one pick seemed to be the opening that Black Dragons need to get a few meters of card space. It's about to be rounding about this corner, so it's going to be about 60. Shanoff that have a nice little perch here so that way they can see where Isurus Gaming are coming from. They're going to have the Graviton Surge and the Sound Barrier to defend themselves with. DDX, on the other hand, just has a few Orbs of Destruction on the list for Stilo.
Able to regroup, and they're able to win the fight. They don't have to use any ultimates either. You do have a couple of ults available for the side of Black Dragons, though, but this Graviton Surge could be disastrous. Of course, you do have the Transcendence to make sure that you avoid that. Still just kind of waiting here. We're already under the 60-second mark for the side of Black Dragons. They're going to Dragon Strike into this fight. Oh, and Steel is able to get X Ravage down right at the beginning. Really great combination for that one there. Graviton Surge coming out. Transcendence a little bit late from Winnie King, though, as Matthias was able to take out the Mercy. And Isurus Gaming still going to be able to win this fight, even though it didn't look good from the beginning.
They're using ultimates, Black Dragons are, but they're not using them effectively, right? You have the Dragon Strike, and sure, Shanoff is 30% shy to the next Dragon Strike, but you have no Zarya to combine it with, so it's you're not really you're kind of just throwing things at a wall and just hoping that something sticks at this point for Black Dragons, and nothing is going to stick. They are quite literally throwing ice at a wall and just watching it shatter. CeeLo just using the Meteor Strike to get back to the point. Self-destruct from Beast is going to find Elizenia right out of the Valkyrie. Black Dragons, they're just going to get hold here under the 60-meter mark. Isurus Gaming, even when they were stalled out and staggered across, when they were down in the fight, came back out from the billboard area and just reintroduced the fight and gained control of the payload once more. They never really skipped a beat. It was only because that they were looking for a little bit too much, that they were probably getting a little bit too big for their britches, that Black Dragons just found a good Storm Arrow or a plethora amount of damage onto one member, that Isurus Gaming lost a core member and they had to back off regardless. But even when they disengaged, they were still re-engaging and regaining control of the payload. So Black Dragons still having a hard time working together as a team, as we can see here, just not combining any of their ultimates, just kind of playing for the picks with the solo tank composition. That's really all you can do, is just to land enough damage so that way your Winston can properly Goomba stomp a target and take them off the battlefield. But Isurus Gaming, they're just so composed. I mean, how do you properly dive a DDX when he's on Zenyatta? I mean, that is quite literally the
so
DPS. That is the DPS of Isurus Gaming. Even when they are playing DPS, he is the biggest damage dealer. His Orbs of Destruction, his accuracy, it is impressive.
Even when they lose players too, Panda, their disengages have been so good that they haven't been able to be as punished as harshly as we've seen happen the opposite way. I mean, Black Dragons, whenever they disengage, they usually get caught out. Is it just because their disengages are late?
It could be some, not to beat a dead horse here, but that desynchronization, it's either late or it's early. It's just so hard to tell because all Black Dragons, they're just quite literally all over the place. So it seems like they're looking for something until an engagement happens, and then it's just like, so what were you really looking at there? I mean, it's like they're trying to paint this beautiful Bob Ross painting, and then they're just taking one paint bucket at a time and just throwing it at the wall and missing the canvas completely. It's
So Jackson Pollock is what you're saying?
Yeah, good one.
Well, some people find that to be art as well, though. It's, I guess, one thing to point out, at least for Black Dragons. The unfortunate part is that art doesn't really help you win games in Overwatch. And Isurus already halfway to the golden box to make this a 4-0. Being stopped right now by the Wrecking Ball that is Stila. And there's the opening pick from Jane, though. finds himself Sean off, and now the dive coming in from Matish onto the Zenyatta, and this looks like Isurus Gaming already with a great advantage, but Vetter trying to keep them in this, eliminates two, but Vetter loses his life, and the cart continues to roll on this season for Black Dragons. Beast also with 2 eliminations, so close to getting to that golden box. Stilo here stalling for as long as he possibly can, but that cart will roll, and I don't know if anybody can get back for Black Dragons in time to stop it. 2-1, and there it is, a 4-0 victory for Isurus Gaming.
Isurus Gaming, they will take the map, they will take the series, and pretty convincing, never in the end. Black Dragons, again, having a hard time with their own selves, figuring out what roles they want to play and combining their ultimates. Even when they had the opportunity to present themselves, it was almost on a silver platter. I would say it was a slightly shattered ceramic plate for Black Dragons today, but they still had some bright spots. They never gave up completely, and that's the most important part for Black Dragons walking away from this loss. Isurus Gaming, on the other hand, now I suppose the ball is in the court for the rest of the group, because to go back to the previous point that we were always talking about for Isurus Gaming, you don't want to be in that 4th seed, but darn did they look really good and composed today, Labasco.
They did, and this is something that we talked about them sort of needing to do was show that they are back, and I think that we have a really good desk that can talk about whether or not that is. So of course we say see you later, at least for now. We'll be back in the next one, but we send it back to Green, Havoc, Frito, and Paulson.
You are right. We will be seeing you a little later, but we still have to break down this game before we can start to even prep for the next one. So Isurus Gaming gets the 4-0, which they didn't desperately need, but they definitely wanted it. This allows them to be a little more confident moving forward. And so, Frito, what are some of the big things that this is going to allow Isurus Gaming moving forward in their next game?
Well, the important thing for me overall is the standings, obviously, because they're looking to dodge 4th place, which will go up against base tryhards from the top of the Group A. And this match, unfortunately, I hate to look at a give horse in the mouth after this win comes quite convincingly, but the Black Dragons, obviously, they're not a practice team, and we're in a high teamwork meta that if you just don't land the teamwork plays, it's going to look as lopsided as it ultimately did. So Isurus, I hope that they don't take too much comfort in taking this win quite convincingly, because the other teams in this group are pretty savage, and if you're rolling into playoffs, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you stay diligent in your preparation to keep everything very clean. They're on top of all of the shenanigans that Black Dragons was trying to toss at them today, which definitely can be proud of, but I don't think I necessarily would say there's many teams in the region that we could expect even doing that. So really nailing down those GOATS fundamentals are going to be moving forward into the next week, and then ultimately to playoffs, which looks more secured for them now, sitting at 3-1, taking the 4-0 victory with the map score. They're looking safe to at least make it to playoffs. Next step, making sure you avoid that 4th place spot.
Very true. Very true. So, Paulsable, obviously Black Dragons have a couple maps or games coming up still to play in this season. So, do you think that they can play at least map record spoilers to someone with the remaining games they have?
You know, they have that one last game, right? It's next week, and if I'm correct, it's against LFT. Yeah, it's against LFT Owl, right? LFT Owl, arguably the best team in this group. Black Dragons are going to have to do a lot of homework between now and next week. I think far and away the most prominent thing I'd like them to work on is that communication, right? Because when they were on the same page, the times that it did happen, they would win team fights, right? We saw on that first push of Horizon, they all dived in, they went for the same targets, it was coordinated, right? And granted, they were playing against a comp from, arguably 2 metas ago, but teams still play the bunker comp, right? So they were able to dismantle that in the exact way they should have. So if they can get themselves on the same page, it's not a bad look. These players have good mechanical skill. They have good game sense. They just need that teamwork that Frito was talking about.
All right, so now I'm gonna ask you guys to dig a little deep, because now this was a pretty one-sided match, but who was the player that stood out the most to you? We'll start with you, Frito. Who's your MVP?
Well, I think I would just take instead of doing MVP, I'll do an honorable mention. I think Vetter definitely filled in on a multitude of different roles, and at least individually did, I think, a decent job on multiple of them. But it was, as we've said thus far, it's a teamwork game with not a lot of team preparation. So looking forward, got to remember too, the playoffs was kind of a long shot for Black Dragons anyway in this season, but by no means is like these players' careers just end right here. Like this happens all the time where teams have a bit of a struggle, don't have the pieces together, but move on to bigger and better things as time goes on. So moving forward, I think they can have their head held high that individually, at least, they are bringing some talent to the table.
All right. And what about you, Paulsable?
Well, since you took the honorable mention, I'm gonna just do the straight up MVP. I gotta say DDX, right? Dude was fragging all day on Zenyatta, looked fearless, right? And sometimes the aggression from the team, the overconfidence, we'll say, got Isurus bit a little bit. But honestly, considering the teams you still have to play, they play against Up Gaming next week. They need to have their confidence. They need to push Up Gaming to their limits. And if DDX can play the same match he played today next week, then Isurus is going to be a fearsome team.
All right. I like both of those answers. And we are going to be heading to break here. Isurus Gaming take the 4-0, looking confident moving forward in the season. They are playoff bound. Where they'll end, well, you'll have to tune in next week to find out. We'll be back after a short break with Looking for Org versus Up Gaming. We'll see you in just a bit.